would you define animal cruelty as?
I would say anything that unnecessarily harms the animal. When I say harms, I don't mean just like, for instance, if someone just started like poking you, consider it too to be the potentiality of that animal's life. For instance, a pig, their average lifespan is like a couple years, right? In terms of like the animal factory farming industry. They're raised from a young age. As they get to like the preferred weight or size, then their gas chamber. That's like the pinnacle point for the suppliers to get bacon out of them. But they actually can live up to 15 to 20 years.
With no purpose.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Conscious Cal YouTube channel. We are here with
Eliza,
and today we're going to be talking about animal cruelty, specifically what you think about it, right? How you justify it, right? And we'll see where the discussion takes us. So, what do you think about animal cruelty? Like, where do you draw the line? What kind of choices do you make on a daily basis? And where do you draw the line?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, to start, I am vegetarian, but not like what you think. So I was raised vegetarian. So my mom has similar beliefs of you guys. She believes that eating animals is cruelty. I am vegetarian because I've been vegetarian so long. I think that eating meat would be not beneficial for my body. Just like I've talked to my doctor about it, and he's like, yeah, it's probably not a good thing. So what I think, so I'm a Catholic, and I believe that God put animals here on earth to support our bodies, for us to eat. So that is my belief. Even though I don't personally do that, I think that for other people, they should be able to.
So you don't personally do that? What do you mean by you don't personally do that?
So I don't eat meat.
But you still eat dairy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to some extent you do use animals through your purchases for your own benefit, right?
Yes.
Okay. So kind of on that basis, why are you vegetarian over vegan?
I'm vegetarian over vegan because I have a calcium deficiency and I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies to provide me with vitamins that I need that I could get from natural things.
Okay. So, as you know, you can supplement calcium, and you can kind of use alternatives for that calcium deficiency. So do you get your calcium from milk? Is that or from dairy products? Is that your main?
Yeah, so I'll get it from that, and then if I'm sure that there are other foods that have it, but I don't when people say, oh, you can take supplemental vitamins, I don't like that.
Okay. So you don't support the pharmaceutical industry, for obvious reasons. I get it totally, right? I completely understand.
Yeah.
But the trouble I'm having here is how you still do support the animal abuse industry, right? And in a lot of, I shouldn't say animal abuse industry. I should say the agriculture industry that uses animal products, right? That's a better way of saying it. And in a lot of ways, and I think, since you can get, and this might be a little bit of a weird argument to make, but since you can get the calcium from supplements, right? Mm-hmm. But you get the calcium from animal products, right?
Right. But so me choosing to use the products from animals, which could be said as abusive, why am I choosing that over something that could be said as not abusive? Is that what you're saying?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So. I don't believe that.
I'm just asking you the question.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Gotcha. I believe that using animal products is not cruel. That is, so I don't think that killing animals to eat them or milking them or taking their fur, I don't think that is cruelty.
I don't think that's cruel. Okay, so, but you don't eat meat, right?
Correct.
Okay, why do you not? Okay, besides, you were raised that way,
it wouldn't be beneficial for my body.
It would hurt you. So it's a health reason, right? Okay, so you don't have a problem with the health, or you don't have a problem with, cows being milked. You don't have a problem with, do you have a problem with pigs, being gas chambered? Do you have a problem with cows getting their heads cut off and, their necks slit, and, stuff like that? Do you have a problem with them dying?
So I have a problem with torture.
Okay.
So cruelty, by definition, is the induction of pain and suffering. So if an animal is not in pain when it is killed, I don't believe that is cruelty.
Okay. Okay, so for instance, like you'd call it like a humane slaughter,
Correct.
right? Okay, so for instance, if a cow like goes into a pen and is, like they're in the pen, right? And they get a gun or they get a gun bolt to their head, right? Like and just instant black, right?
Right.
You would think that's okay, right?
Yes.
Because there's technically no pain or
Correct.
something.
That
okay.
is my view. Yeah.
Now, what would you say? What would you say in response to the potential of that animal's life, right? Meaning, and they don't want to die, right? Like inherently, like if they
By nature,
by nature we have an urge to survive and thrive, right? Like
Right.
that's a non-conscious interest that we have, right? And in addition, we have this potential for life, yet it's taken away from us. Like I'm just saying in the sense of like a cow, pig,
Yeah,
chicken,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
In that sense. So what do you think about that? Like in terms of the potential of their life, right? And how they want to live, right? They're conscious beings. They experience pain and suffering. Like obviously not in that instance, right? You would call it the most humane suffering. But is that really humane considering we're taking their life from them, right?
Right.
And when we don't have to, right? Meaning we can turn to other alternatives, right? I know it's a little bit different for your case,
Yeah.
and we can always get into that. But would you consider that to be a humane slaughter when they have that potentiality for life, yet they want to live like as well too?
Right. So I value human life over animals' lives. So you could make that same argument for abortion or the death penalty or any of those.
Yeah.
But I think if it is in the benefit of humans, that is where I draw the line. Like if we are killing animals just to kill them, like I don't like game hunting. I don't support that. But if you're hunting for the benefit of your body and killing animals for your health, I believe in that.
But what if there was a way where we can get, and I know, like I said before, it's different for your individual case, but what if there was a way where you can get all these nutrients, right? And it's been shown that you can get all the nutrients except B12 and vitamin D from a vegan-based diet, right?
Right.
Yeah, and obviously people have to do their research. They have to find out what works for them, right? It's not a black and white thing. But what if we can what if we can turn to alternatives that are like pretty healthy, right? And they give us that same taste pleasure, right? So we're filling in that health aspect, right? Without this suffering being caused, right? Like, so what would you say in response to that? Like, like with that alternative, should we still do these things when we don't have to? Why should we cause suffering when we don't have to?
Well, because I don't believe that it is suffering, and the fact that your argument about the vitamins, I think B12 and vitamin D are two of the most important vitamins that you can have. I know a lot of vegans are depressed, and that's because they're lacking vitamin D.
But you can supplement it.
Yeah.
And you can get sunlight too. So
Very true. So I think that that's a big thing for me, at least, and the fact that I believe that at least in America, if you have the choice to eat food, you should be able to eat food. And if you, like, whoever you want to do that, you should be able to. I support, I know a lot of farm stands that will slaughter their own chickens, slaughter their own cows, whatever. And I support, like, small businesses too. So that would be taking away from that, which would be not good too.
But we don't. So when you say like you support, like, you support human health through this, there's another avenue there, right? Like, so you don't have to kill these animals, right, in order for human health to still be at that point, right? So be at that point meaning like being healthy, right? Like, and being able to be at that same standard of well-being, right? So why would we continue a process that, okay, let's just say it is a humane slaughter, which I don't necessarily agree with,
Okay.
or
I'm just saying. I personally don't believe
that, yeah, why would we support something that we don't necessarily have to do, right? And so, like, meaning, like, we don't have to support these avenues that cause suffering, right? Like, I get you value human life over animals, right? Like, so if there was a fire, right, and there's two, let's just say, for instance, like two chickens in a building, right, and a human, right, and yeah. And there's two chickens in a building and a human, right? Like, and I can only save one of them, right?
Right.
I'm gonna pick the human, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
let's just say there's an option where I can save all of them, right?
Right.
And I don't have to kill them,
Right.
right? That's the option I'm talking about. See,
Okay.
because we have that ability, right? There is a range there where there is
Okay,
a
I get what you're saying. So, if we could save everyone, that would be ideal. But the fact of the matter is, we have billions of these farm animals that we eat for mass production on Earth.
so we need to.
We need to. We have cows producing mass amounts of CO2 that is polluting our atmosphere with their feces. The less amount of them that we have, the better. But they're just going to keep reproducing. Like sheep reproduce at mass rates.
So how do cows reproduce?
Well, I know that they used to do it naturally, but I think we now inject semen into female cows. Manually.
Why do we artificially inseminate cows?
To eat them. And I would prefer getting nutrients from cows. So you are what you eat, right? And we are almost 90-something% water, and then the rest of it is muscle and fat. So I want to be made more of like muscle, and I can't do that. Like I would rather the most efficient way to gain muscle is to eat what you want to be. So you can see a bunch of people doing carnivorous diets like gain lots of muscle mass rather than vegan diets. Like so I have a friend doing a vegan diet to gain muscle, and he's doing this experimentally to have a vegan diet and try and gain the same muscle mass with another friend who's doing a carnivorous diet to gain the same. Over the course of years, he has not been able to achieve the same muscle mass as
You
the.
also have to take in genetics into account.
Yeah,
so
of course.
It is very different, and those are both two anecdotal cases.
Right,
So
yeah.
It's not something that you can just take that specific example.
Right,
and
yeah.
Put it across the entire spectrum.
And there are different blood types that
Yeah,
are
exactly.
better with more carnivorous diets than I know. The O negative blood type, which I have, ancestrally they ate more red meat diets, but I don't. So I it's a hypothetical that I might be suffering because I haven't eaten that red meat. But my boyfriend, on the other hand, has B positive, and they benefit a lot from grains and fruits. So I think it really depends, which isn't it's kind of straying away from the animal cruelty fact, since cruelty is inflicting pain and suffering, you can't call humane killing cruelty. I think if you are abusing an animal, like keeping it in a small pen or having like chickens eat their own feces.
Something that damages their well-being.
Yeah, so I think that those the companies that do these mass productions of artificially I think that could be considered abuse because we are changing the natural lifestyle of these animals. But I don't think so. A different argument that I could bring in is that other animals on Earth eat other animals. So why is it different for them? Like, would we prevent?
Just because it's natural, it's okay.
I could say that. Yeah.
So a couple things there.
Yeah.
So veganism is an ethical-based philosophy, right?
Right.
And so on that basis, it doesn't necessarily matter the health outcomes of, like, we shouldn't focus based on health, right? Of course, health is important, right? No doubt about
Yeah.
it. But it's more so about, is it right or is it wrong, right? So, like, for instance, like, just because, like, let's just say, if I started eating, I don't mean like there's no studies out here saying this, but let's just say, like, if you started eating humans, right, but it has like tremendous health benefits, right?
Well, we know that it doesn't.
Well, no. I'm just saying,
But
like, I'm saying in a
yeah,
hypothetical
yeah,
world,
yeah.
right? Like, so, like, or you just eat animal-based products that, like, you feel tremendous, or not, you become healthier based on that, right?
Right.
So through that,
It's not a as valid argument.
yeah,
because
it's not
of- yeah.
because just because something is natural doesn't make it right. Like, so if you go out into the wilderness, right, there's animals that like rape each other, right? There's animals
Yeah.
that unnecessarily kill each other, murder, right?
Right,
Terrible things. Does that mean we should do it, right? Because we have this moral aspect to ourselves, right?
Right.
We can see right from wrong, right? We have moral agency, right? And
Right.
we allot rights to animals. We allot rights cats, dogs, right? We allot rights to humans, right?
Right.
And through that ability, we are able to create a better life. I should say better life. Create a better world, in a sense, right? That that promotes, I guess you could say, the greatest happiness and the least amount of suffering, right?
Okay.
And so, kind of like the reason why I said all that was because, like you said before, how eating, like, we have all these animals, right? Like, we need to eat them, right? But the fact of the matter is, they shouldn't even be in existence in the first place, right? Because we're the ones that create them, right? Like, of course, like, biologically, right? Like, but we're the ones that initiate that process, right?
Right.
But we don't have to start that process, right? In the sense that if we reduce the demand, right, it'll reduce the amount of cows being, I guess you could say, procreated, being created, right? And on that basis, it can be reduced to no more cows in a world where, I guess you could say, everyone went vegan, right? And so it's not necessary, therefore we don't have to do it, right? And studies have shown, and I know it's different for each individual, but that you can have tremendous health benefits, right? You can have all these different types of things, right, while not actively contributing to animal cruelty. And so,
Right. What would you define animal cruelty as?
so I would say anything that unnecessarily harms the animal, right? And so when I say harms, I don't mean just like, for instance, if someone just started like poking you, put you in like a bad spot. Like, I consider it too to be, the potentiality of that animal's life, right?
Okay.
So, like, meaning, like, for instance, a pig, right? Their average lifespan is like a couple years, right? Or like in terms of like the animal factory farming industry, right? So they're raised from a young age, right? And then, as they get to like the preferred weight or size, then they're gas chambered, right? Because that's like the pinnacle point for them, for manufacturers, I should say suppliers, to get bacon out of them, right?
Okay.
But they actually can live up to 15 to 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're
With no purpose.
well, their purpose. Well, what is their purpose?
Well, I think that their purpose on Earth is for them to be eaten. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, they don't have, like, environmentally, because of the, like, pigs and cows nowadays, they're domestic. Like, they aren't wild.
Yeah.
They couldn't live in the wilderness by themselves. Yeah.
Inherently they did,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were, like, is there a difference between those wild pigs versus, like, farm pigs? Like, would you be okay with people killing, like, wild pigs if they went out and...
In theory, yes. In order, yes, I would be. But I'm more so concerned about the factory farming, right? And that's
Okay.
like that's what I'm more so concerned about. Like, yes, of course. Like, in a world where, like, because, like, realistically, right? And the biggest problem, and where billions, if not trillions, of animals die, is in factory farms, right?
Right.
And like in that general area, right?
Okay.
So that's what I'm really focused on, right?
Okay.
But do I still think hunters should go out and kill animals? No, absolutely not, because they have that inherent desire to live, right? Like, they don't want to die, right? And I think also the argument is like a more so Christian-based argument that animals are here for us, right? And they're here for us to benefit. In my mind, that's a very selfish position to take, right? Because, and I'm not saying that to like come at you. I'm not saying that.
I could back up my own.
Of course.
points, but you
No,
just-
and
you
I
talk.
expect you to. I expect you to, because why not create a world in which we don't actively pursue animal cruelty, right, through the conditions that they have, right,
Okay.
and end animals' lives earlier than they don't have to be? To me, it would be more virtuous if, and I guess you could say better, if we didn't participate in factory farming, causing suffering when we don't have to, right, and because there are alternatives. If meat was necessary, this would be a completely different discussion, right? But
Okay.
since it's not, it opens up the table for like so many more
That's
things. So I
valid.
mean, I know I said a lot of stuff there, but
No.
and maybe I didn't respond to your direct point,
okay.
which I apologize. But yeah, what did you think about
So I, like, as a Christian, the Bible says that puts animals here on earth for us to eat. That it says in Genesis that they're here for us to eat. So in that sense, and that the fact that animals don't have the same value as humans do, it is not like immoral. Morals and ethics, I think, are two separate things. I think morally,
very closely.
yes, I think morally, if you are not inflicting suffering and pain to an animal. So, like, I could get on to your belief that factory farming is bad. Because in factory farming, I've seen videos of pigs being dehydrated because stressed muscle is tastier. I could get behind the fact that that could be cruelty, but I do not believe that killing, inflicting harm, the act of murdering, I do not think that that is cruelty because, say, the animal is sick and you have to kill it. I would not call that cruelty because you are killing the animal without...
It's a case of necessity.
Right. So I believe that the act of killing an animal is not cruel if it is not inflicting suffering. If an animal is suffering, like say with veal, they will kick and I don't support veal at all. I think it's horrible.
So why do you not support veal?
Because they have the calf suffer. They'll kick and they'll stress the cow out so that the meat is better tasting. And
So because of the cruelty that's done to the veal, right?
yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not the killing. Because
Not the killing.
I don't
Okay.
think that the killing is the cruelty. I think what happens beforehand is the
So
cruelty.
you have no problem with their potentiality of life, right? So for a veal, a baby cow, right?
Right.
Which I respect your consistency here. You with the veal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a baby cow, right? So they're taken from their mama cow,
Right.
which is weird to say. Mama cow, mama cow, like a couple hours, maybe a couple days after birth, right? And then they're killed for veal, right?
Yes.
So you don't have a problem, right, with that, with the young calf being able to live out its life, right? You have no problem with that animal being able to, live out its days, ability to, grow up, experience life, do all these different types of things. Do you have any problem with that? Because and you said you have a problem with the cruelty and the
Yes.
conditions that they put in, right? So
Yes.
for instance, like that, but you have no problem with, for instance, in your words, in general terms, the humane slaughter of them, right? You're okay with that,
Right. Well, you're acting as if animals have the same consciousness as humans do, which is not true. The intelligence is similar, but the fact that a lot of animals don't even know that they exist. So I can't.
So it's based on intelligence.
Not necessarily. I think that with killing animals, because my basis is value. So since I value humans a lot more than I do animals, I think that the killing of an animal is valid. I don't think that, because we're respecting the animal for its life. We're thankful that the animal is there for us to eat. We're not, the disrespect would happen in disrespecting God's creatures if we are creating a bad environment for them to be in, with factory farming and killing, having a baby cow suffer such.
But would you not say that killing them is you're ending their life? You know what I mean? You're ending their ability to experience the world, regardless of if they're conscious of their own experience or not. They're still experiencing the world, right? Regardless of if they're self-conscious or not, right? Dolphins are a little bit self-conscious, right?
Yeah.
Different types of things. But it's not based on intelligence, right? There's cows that are smarter than babies, right? But we still give babies rights,
Yes.
right? So
That would be a basis of value in that sense.
yeah, but we're not basing it on intelligence, right? We're basing it on inherent values. Because if you try to base it on intelligence, like I just said before,
Right.
I guess. Oh, shoot. Okay, I think we're good. I was like, oh crap. I think. What was I saying? Okay, yeah. So if we base it on intelligence, right? Where so if and I know you're not arguing this. But just to make the point, if we base it on intelligence, right, and we value, for instance, like, I'm going to kill this cow because it's not smart, right? It's not experiencing the world. It doesn't have the same conscious ability as a human, right?
That would be unethical.
Yeah, that would be unethical. But arguably, a cow is more conscious, more aware of the world than a baby is, right? So in that sense, it would be okay, according to that logic, to kill the baby, right? Which obviously is not okay, right? But so you disagree with that, right?
Right. So I think that the argument of intelligence and consciousness could just add on to the value, which is my main argument, is that humans have more value than animals, and that suffering is wrong. But suffering is cruelty. The killing is not cruelty. So that is my argument.
Okay. So, but what would you say about? So there's a difference here, because there's inherent value, right? And then there's value that we ascribe, right? And we can get into like the philosophical argument of like whether the world like has no meaning, which I actually back. But let's just assume that we're taking that stance for right now, right? Like that there is inherent value in the world, right? So, meaning that human beings, animals of all alike, right, have inherent rights, right?
So
they have all the same, right? Like, not necessarily, I would say all the same, right? Meaning they have the natural right to live their life, right? They have the natural right to experience the world, right? And since do you agree that, I guess kind of gets into a whole other area, but do you agree that eating meat is not a necessity? Like, or eating meat, dairy, and eggs, do you think that's not a necessity?
I think that it is a choice. I don't think...
So it's not a necessity?
I mean...
Yeah, because if there's choice,
yeah, I think...
with one alternative. Or if it is a choice, there's more alternatives.
Health is the goal, but survival is necessary.
But should it be health, though?
I guess that depends on the person. Because
what do you think?
There are some people who live on potato chips and alcohol, but there are people who... Like, I know plenty of vegans who live very healthy lifestyles, but I'm a vegetarian, so I eat eggs and milk, and I wear wool clothes, and I still live a very healthy lifestyle. I guess it just depends on what you say is health, because health could be objective, but I think that I have no clue. I guess it depends.
I would just say, and this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, that a lot of people and this is a common misinterpretation. People get into veganism because it's a health matter, right?
Yep.
But that's not why you should get into it. At least I think, right?
Okay.
It's an ethical reason. Like, you should do it because it's the right thing to do, right? You're not doing it because it's going to benefit your health, right? You should be doing it because of the suffering that it causes to other animals, right? And the cruelty that it espouses upon the world, right? And stuff like that. So people get into it for environmental reasons. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't get into it for these reasons, right? But I'm saying your top priority should be an ethical reason, right?
Okay.
And so the basis of that is seeing that eating meat is not a necessity, right? So in terms of we can see that, and this does bring in the health aspect, this does bring in other aspects, that we don't need to eat meat, right? Because we have alternatives, right? We have choice, right? We have different types of things. Like, objectively speaking, right? Like, I can go to, and where we are, right, in modern civilization, right? I can go to any store and get all the nutrients I need, right? Oh, I think that one go off. I can get all the nutrients I need from a plant-based diet, right? It's been proven, it's been shown in the studies. Sure, if you want to question that, go for it. But through that, we can see that eating meat is not a necessity. It doesn't have to happen, and I know I've said this many times, but regardless, if we can just focus in that ballpark and obviously do the research, do the necessary things that can help us develop a rounded understanding of how to live healthy, right? I feel like no matter what, you should always stick to a plant-based diet because the cruelty and the harm that it causes, and we've talked about this before, right? I'm not trying to push this on you right now. The cruelty and the harm that it causes is unjustified, right?
Okay.
And And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Do you have any
Well, I was just thinking about something you said earlier about how you think that the entire world doesn't have value or like no purpose.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So, God. All right. So we are getting into this. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. No. Just because I think morality is subjective, right?
Okay.
Like in my mind, right? Like
Okay.
I don't think there is an objective morality, right? Therefore, like we are the ones that create values. We are the ones that create beliefs, right? We create these moral systems. We create these moral hierarchies, right? And philosophies that we live life by, right?
Okay.
But and like this is more so like a spiritual realization, right? Like because like everything is whole and complete as it is, right? Like we are the ones that say what is right. We are the ones that say what is right and wrong, right? But beyond our perception, beyond our and please stop me if you're not following me. Beyond our perception, beyond our reality, right? None of like philosophy, ethics, laws, right, would exist, right?
Without us.
Without us, yeah,
Okay.
because we are the sources of those value judgments, right? We are
Okay.
the sources of those judgments, right?
I assume
And
you're
so,
atheist.
no, I mean, I believe existence is God, right?
Okay.
And so it's more so just like being one with all that is, right? Like so being one with the universe, right? Like so I don't believe in a humanized God, right? Like
Okay.
I believe in a non-humanized form of God.
Okay.
But like through that, like I think it's more so of a realization rather than something you live your life by, right? So
Okay.
in the sense that like, okay, I see that there's no inherent value in the world, right? But that doesn't mean I should live according to that, right?
Right.
Meaning I shouldn't be like, oh yeah, dude, this is pointless.
Yeah, 'cause
Like
I
what the
was
hell?
assuming,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you don't see that like value in the world,
Yeah.
like why are you supportive of like?
No, exactly, and I should have made that clear. But no, so this is like, and it's like a major contradiction. But like, just like not a major contradiction, but like, I think within the reality we operate in, we have to have these philosophies, right? Especially within civilization, right?
Right,
We're all
for the world to
for the world,
work,
yeah,
yeah.
for the world to operate, right? And having discussions like this, right? And it's just being creating rights, creating philosophies, creating like how we ought to live, right? Like just that type of treatment, right, is so beneficial because we can live, like I said before, we can live a preferable life rather than one of just an immense amount of suffering like we did
Right.
back in like the medieval days, right?
Right. Yeah. I think that with animals, because in my opinion, even like factually, like do they, with their value and their if intelligence and consciousness and the fact if they care that their life is over, if that all mattered, I think that with their let me start over.
No, take your time, seriously.
Yeah,
No worries. I was like getting the same way. You're fine.
Yeah, so I think that with the creation of morals and ethics, I think that should be strictly, I think it should be consistent.
Absolutely.
And
It has to be.
I think that with,
It has to be. Yeah.
like, we could agree that suffering is bad and cruelty is bad. I think with the definition of cruelty, we differ. I think that your definition is that any harm inflicted on an animal is cruelty, and my definition is that any suffering and pain would be defined as cruelty.
Just a little side note, like there are justifiable instances of eating meat and killing an animal. Like
What would that be?
we talked about the euthanization, right? Like
Okay.
if an animal's like clearly suffering, right, and it would be better put out of its misery,
Right.
right? That, in my opinion, like we have that, and I don't know if it's allowed in the United States, but in different, like that is a justifiable reason to put them out of their misery, right? Because like if they continue to exist, they'll just suffer more, right? So it's just like
Could you eat that animal though? If like say it's not cruelty, would you eat
I don't know if you'd want to eat that animal.
I know, but like with that argument, like
I mean-
if it's not cruelty, would you eat that animal?
I mean, I guess in that instance no, I mean it wouldn't be in that specific instance that you're talking about, right? And we could talk about maybe like the roadkill on the side of the road, right? Like that. I think okay, so I wouldn't personally eat that animal because it's sick, right? And
Yeah.
it's not healthy, right? It's like
Right,
it's
so-
clearly ill, right? I would not eat that animal,
Okay.
right? But if you take it, I think a better example and a better way to press me on this would be for instance, like one time I was watching this YouTuber and he ran over a bird, right? And
So the bird is hurt.
yeah, he killed the bird. He
Oh,
killed the
killed the
bird.
bird.
Yeah, he killed the
Okay,
bird.
yeah.
And then he picked it up and he ate it, right? And so like, in my opinion, like something accidental like that, like the bird's dead, right? Like the bird has no life, right? Like the bird has, it's an object at this point, right? Like, okay, right? And so in that sense, right, where you didn't have control over the process to where you got it, sure. If you want to eat it, go for it, right? But I'm more so focusing on that process, right? Because we don't have to go through that process, right? And that's more so what I'm focused on, right? And so, and another just to kind of bring it back, just another justifiable instance of eating meat is like in civilized, I should say like in more so. I don't want to say like a lower quality society, right? Even though like these people are extremely happy, but like in that type of society where they don't have as many alternatives, right? As many choices. Yeah, exactly, right? Like eating meat, they have to, right, to survive, right? Yeah. But we don't live in that situation, right? We don't live in that type of scenario, right? So what do you?
I think that is a good point. If we don't have to, then why do we? That's I think at that point it's a personal choice. I have found another argument in my head that I've heard some people say that energy doesn't die. Like
transferred.
Yeah. So say like an animal, its body parts may not work, but you're using the energy from that for a new body. We're gonna die someday. Our body will get turned into the dirt. It will become a new, like the cow will eat the grass.
Yeah, biologically.
Yeah. So we're just continuing the life cycle. We do that with plants too. Like we eat plants and like we're continuing the life cycle. I think in terms of like it's okay, a natural world. I think the life cycle is very important, and continuing the energy cycle and carbon cycle. Just another argument that like if you like respecting an animal, like you're respecting, say in like Muslims, they respect animals very dearly. They pray over the animal before they kill it because they respect it so much and want the goods from that animal for themselves, which I guess you could argue that is selfish. In certain religions, it is a type of worship, and so I guess it really depends on your personal morals and your personal moral compass.
If morality is subjective, then you technically could create a morality around supporting animal cruelty, right? Like the sign says. But I would argue that almost every person, at least within our modern society, and like is attached to like the global sphere, right? That like is aware of like the news and information, right? Is not of that moral mindset, right? Like so they may consciously say, right, that I don't have a problem with animal cruelty. Like so, for instance, like factory farming, they don't have an issue with it, right? But then when you ask them, okay, what do you think about a cat or a dog, right? They have that emotional attachment, right? And they're like, I would never, if I went to a store, right, and I saw a dog, right, like a chopped up dog, right, like, I would never pay for that. Why is that, right? I mean, you could answer that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point it's societal and the nature of the animal. With factory farming, the purpose of those animals is to eat, but the purpose for a cat and a dog is for companionship, and that's why people have those emotional attachments. But if you go to China, you see dogs being eaten. Like that is a thing.
In that sense, we ascribe the purpose to them, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, what would you say in response to, would you eat a cat or a dog? Or I know you wouldn't, but like, what do you think about that?
In terms of value, I think that all animals have the same value, and it's lower than humans. So in that sense, I guess I could, but then it turns into a purpose kind of thing, because a purpose for me, for a dog and a cat, is for companionship. But if I had to eat the cat or the dog, like say it was the last thing on earth, I would.
Okay, yeah, it's a necessity. But don't you think that there's kind of this inconsistency here, like with how you say a cat and a dog is for companionship, right? Mm-hmm. But someone in for instance, like I think it's Hinduism, right? Like they cows are like, or I should say more so indigenous cultures, right? Yeah. They believe buffalo and animals are actually above humans, right? Because they have the natural ability to live out in nature, right? And they're actually more in tune with Mother Earth, right? So they actually value animals above humans, right? And so in that
But
sense,
I believe they still kill them.
well, yeah, they kill them because it's also kind of like a necessity kind of thing in those types of cultures, right? Because they kind of have to, right? And
Yeah, I think another part of it is sacrifice and worship. You have to kill an animal for a sacrifice. But that's not saying that the animal doesn't have value or the animal doesn't have purpose. It's that the animal has so much purpose that we are offering it to a higher power.
yeah, and I would just really press back on that point because it's, so we're sacrificing, and okay, I just want to kind of bring it back a little bit because, and just to kind of like the companionship part, because like I mean we could be here for like another hour,
no,
all right? And I think this will be the last point we wrap up on. Just kind of the companion, and if you want to talk about something else, go for it. But just kind of the companionship and like how the nature of the animal, right? So cats and dogs, right, in our society are naturally given the purpose to be our companions, right? To be our aid, right? But then other animals, right, they're just like objects, right? Like cows, chickens, right, and the like. And because we don't give them that same emotion, then we don't give them rights, right? We do what we want with them, right? So like they're in a factory farm, right? In that sense, right? And I wouldn't say in general, like I know there's farms like where they raise chickens, right? I know they have them on, like, but I'm saying generally, right? Like in factory farms, right? Like of cows, chickens, and the like, right? They're pretty much objects. We do what we want them. Yeah, sure they take care of them, sure they like, but it's pretty much just to raise them to a point where we can slaughter them for profit, right? And to feed animals. Or to feed animals, to feed humans, right? And so, I think you have to be in a world where you don't have to eat meat, right? And that's like the basis that we're on. You have to be consistent with the value, and we established earlier, like your morality has to be consistent, right?
Yes.
So you have to give animals equal value across the entire spectrum, right? Because there's this speciesism, right? Because like we value certain animals over others, right? And so in that instance, it's
Well, no, actually, you don't value them more. It's like I don't value a cat and a dog over a farm animal. I think they have different purposes. The value isn't different, but the purpose is. I
Spell
like.
it out a little bit more.
Okay, so the value of a dog, like I have a dog. Actually, I don't have a dog. My dad has a dog. The purpose of that dog is companionship. I'm using the dog for my emotional benefit. The dog does not gain anything really except for like survival things. The dog doesn't grow like an emotional attachment. It grows an instinctual attachment. So in that sense, we are using the dog.
Yeah.
So you could say that's immoral, but I think the difference is that the purpose of the farm animals is to eat. There are different purposes, but if I killed a dog, like just because I wanted to but wasn't inflicting suffering or pain, I think that could be moral. But the difference is that that dog had a different purpose than the cow. So the dog's purpose wasn't to be eaten, it was to be my companion. So that's why people are like, oh, but I wouldn't kill the dog because after you kill it, that's it. Like you don't eat it. So.
yeah, well, the thing is, I just have a problem with, because you pointed out there's different purposes
Yes,
there,
but
right?
Same value.
Same value. So, but I would argue that I would say, you said same value, right?
Same value, different purposes.
I would say the cat and dog, right? You value way more, right? You value way more because as compared to a cow or chicken and the like, right? Because according to their purposes, right? Like the cows, chickens, their purpose is to be eaten, right? Therefore, you value them way less, right? And so, but as compared to a cow and a dog, right? You have this emotional attachment to them. You have this companionship, right? You value them way more, right? And so there is a difference in their value. There, at least how I'm viewing it and how I'm getting from what you're saying.
Okay.
And so on that basis, we're valuing these animals morally inconsistently, and that's an issue because our logic is not consistent, right? Our principles that we uphold, right? We're not actually living according to them across the spectrum, like consistently.
Yeah, I mean,
you get what I'm saying?
I think the value that we give them is different, but the intrinsic value of animals versus humans, like the intrinsic value is the same, but the value that we give like domestic pets versus domestic farm animals, I think is different. I do agree with that, but the intrinsic value is the same. But say, like, I don't like pets. I think that having pets is selfish. Like, they're not doing anything other than just making you happy or something. So I would say that the intrinsic value is the same. And, like, for me, I think the value that we give them.
What would you say the intrinsic value is? Like, if you had to break that down. And I know it's not an easy thing. It's just...
Yeah, because you can't really say, like, it's not like a number system. It's not,
Yeah.
I think that with intrinsic value, like, you basic respect, like, you don't...
They have inherent value.
Yeah.
Because they're a being. Right?
Yes,
Like,
because they're a being.
Because they're a being.
Yeah, but then you could also, like, plants are also alive and are technically a being. They have, like, for Catholics, plants have spirits, the same spirits as animals, though. So, like, plants and animals are the same in the Catholic sense.
Yeah. Okay. But when you poke a dog, right, or you poke a cat, right,
Right.
as compared to, like, a carrot, right?
Right, there's a different consciousness.
Yeah, there's a reaction there, right?
Right,
Like,
yep.
you could tell that, and listen, like, there's science out there that says plants are sentient, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, but...
Mushrooms make music.
Well, yeah, okay, right, like, there's stuff like that, right? Well, let's just talk about, like,
Yeah.
practical stuff, right, for right now, okay? Like, totally cool if, like, you want to say plants are sentient, we could always discuss that, right?
Yeah.
But from what we can observably see, right,
Right.
if you poke a cat, right, that motherfucker's gonna...
Yeah,
You know,
that's
like
it.
swat you, right? And it's
Excuse
because
me?
it doesn't like what you're doing to it, right? As compared to a plant, right? It, like you said, it is life, right?
Right.
If there was a world where we can have like a biocentric view, where we can allot rights to plants, right? And there's some like alternative, right? Why would we not do that, right? Like allow plants to flourish, right? But
It'll probably be better for the ecosystem.
yeah, exactly. Like there's clearly a difference between animals and plants. To say
Right.
they're one and the same is not correct, right?
Well, they're not the same, but I think the value.
No, sorry. So they're not the same in terms of, but
Nature.
Nature, yeah, biologically. But I would say the inherent value of animals is different.
So we both agree that cruelty is bad.
Yeah.
And we agree that suffering and inflicting pain on animals is bad.
Yeah.
We disagree on the definition of cruelty because you think that
Like because like what you say is you don't necessarily care about, or not care. You know, you don't necessarily care or have a problem with their potentiality of life, right? After that, right? Meaning, like, if I was to kill a pig, right, that has 15 more years to live, right, you wouldn't have an issue with them dying because their purpose is to be eaten,
Correct.
right? Okay, yeah, you agree with that. Which I would push back on, but we don't have time. Yeah, and I think that is that everything, right? I mean, there's like the differences in the purposes of animals, but yeah, I think thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate it. I think this will be on the Conscious Cow YouTube channel and on maybe some clips on the Veg Club. But yeah, guys, just having like we were talking about this before, having like open, honest conversations about this from like whether you want to say opposite ends of the spectrum is really important. Just challenging each other's viewpoints. Like I'm not trying to say like I'm dogmatic. I'm not trying to say you're dogmatic, but like just objectively trying to move towards a solution and understand what you really think and just progress. Any other thoughts you'd like to say?
No, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll be doing it again soon. So yeah, guys, make sure you love yourself because I love you. Stay handsome, and we are clocking out, people. Peace.